Bullies steal quiet boy's homework. Huge error. He was a kickboxing prodigy. Marcus Delacroix sat in Roosevelt High's cafeteria corner, hunched over calculus problems. At 17, he barely reached 5'6" and weighed 130 pounds. His thick glasses constantly slipped down his nose, and unruly dark hair fell across his face whenever someone looked his way. 3 months since moving from Montreal, Marcus still felt like a ghost drifting through crowded hallways. The migration hadn't been his choice. His mother's job transfer uprooted him from everything familiar, including the kickboxing gym where he'd trained since age 8 under Master Antoine Dubois, a former European champion. 9 years of rigorous training had transformed Marcus into something lethal, though his appearance betrayed nothing of the devastating combinations he could unleash. He'd earned his black belt at 15 and was preparing for regional competitions when the move shattered everything. "Keep your head down," he reminded himself, the mantra his mother drilled into him. "Just survive senior year and get into McGill." But staying invisible proved impossible when you possessed homework that consistently earned perfect scores. "Well, well, what do we have here?" The voice belonged to Tyler Hutchinson, a 6'2" linebacker whose father owned half the town's commercial real estate. Tyler's sandy hair was perfectly styled, his Letterman jacket immaculate, and cruel blue eyes gleamed with confidence. Behind him stood Derek Martinez, a stocky wrestler with a perpetual sneer, and Brandon Walsh, tall and lean with nervous energy. Marcus looked up, stomach tightening. "Don't engage, don't react." "Studying during lunch?" Tyler laughed, drawing attention from nearby tables. "That's so French or Canadian, whatever weird place you crawled out of." "I heard he speaks French at home," Derek added, cracking knuckles. "Probably plotting to surrender to someone." The cafeteria buzzed with chaos. A few students glanced over but quickly looked away, unwilling to draw Tyler's attention. Mrs. Patterson, the lunch monitor, stood across the room checking her phone, oblivious. Marcus carefully closed his notebook. "I should get to chemistry lab." "Chemistry?" Brandon stepped closer mockingly. "What are you making? Surrender flags?" Tyler's hand shot out, grabbing Marcus's backpack before he could zip it closed. "Hold up there, Frenchie. I'm having trouble with my calc homework. You wouldn't mind sharing answers, would you?" Marcus felt heat rise in his chest, familiar adrenaline surging. His muscles tensed involuntarily, and for a split second, he calculated angles and distances. Tyler's stance was wide, weight forward, vulnerable to a low kick that would drop him instantly. Derek favored his left side, probably nursing an old wrestling injury. Brandon was all reach and no foundation. "Number." The thought came sharp and clear. "That's not who you are here." "I don't think that would help you learn the material," Marcus said quietly. Tyler's grip tightened. "I think it would help me a lot. See, my dad's donated $50,000 to this school. That means I basically own this place, and right now I'm asking nicely." "And we're asking real nice," Derek added, moving to Marcus's left. Marcus's training kicked in automatically, peripheral vision cataloging their positions, body subtly shifting to maintain mobility. But he forced himself to remain still. Violence would only create more problems. It would confirm every stereotype about angry immigrants he'd heard whispered in hallways. "Please just give me my bag back," Marcus said, hating how small his voice sounded. Tyler's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Please? Oh, that's precious. You know what? I think I'll just take this whole bag. Call it a loan." Before Marcus could react, Tyler yanked the backpack away and tossed it to Derek, who caught it grinning. "Finders keepers, right?" The rage flooding through Marcus was white-hot and immediate. 9 years of training had taught him to channel anger into precise, devastating action. His body wanted to explode into motion to show these privileged bullies exactly what mistake they were making. Instead, he stood frozen, watching his entire academic life disappear. "That has all my homework for the week," Marcus whispered. "Then you better get started on making new copies," Brandon laughed. "Hope you remember everything." They walked away laughing, Tyler's voice carrying back. "Thanks for the donation, Frenchie. I'll put your name on it when I turn it in." Marcus remained standing beside the empty table, hands clenched into fists. Around him, conversations slowly resumed as entertainment ended. A few students shot sympathetic glances, but no one approached. Mrs. Patterson had missed the entire encounter. The rest of the day passed in humiliation. Marcus had to explain to 3 teachers why he didn't have due assignments. Mrs. Henderson in AP Chemistry gave him a disappointed look that cut deeper than any physical blow. Mr. Roberts in Calculus simply marked him down for a 0. "Homework issues are your responsibility," Mr. Roberts said dismissively. "I can't give extensions every time a student claims their work was stolen." By final bell, Marcus felt hollow inside. He walked to his rusted Honda Civic and sat watching Tyler, Derek, and Brandon climb into Tyler's gleaming BMW, laughing about something. Probably him. At home, Marcus spent 4 hours recreating stolen homework from memory. His mother worked late at the insurance office, so he ate dinner alone while redoing calculus problems he'd already solved perfectly. "This is temporary," he told himself. "Just get through the year. Don't make waves." But the next morning brought fresh humiliation. Tyler found him at his locker before first period. "Hey there, homework buddy. Got anything new for me today?" "I don't understand what you mean," Marcus replied, stomach churning. Derek appeared on his other side, boxing him against lockers. "Tyler means he needs your chemistry lab report, the one due third period." Marcus clutched his backpack tighter. "I can't keep giving you my work. Teachers will notice identical answers." "Smart boy," Tyler nodded approvingly. "That's why you're going to change yours. Make it different enough that old Henderson won't catch on, but still good enough to pass." The hallway filled with students, creating a perfect audience for Marcus's degradation. He recognized faces. Jessica Chen from French class looking uncomfortable. Michael Thompson from student council checking his phone. Sarah Williams from chemistry lab watching with obvious pity. "I won't do that," Marcus said, surprising himself with firmness. Tyler's expression darkened. "You won't?" "It's academic dishonesty. I could get in trouble." Derek laughed harshly. "You could get in trouble? What about the trouble you'll be in if you don't help us out?" Brandon moved closer, completing the triangle trapping Marcus against his locker. "See? We've been talking, and we think you owe us for letting you sit in our cafeteria, for letting you attend our school. This is basically a protection fee." Protection fee. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He'd heard similar words in Montreal from street thugs who tried to shake down Master Dubois' gym. He remembered how his teacher had handled them, swift, decisive, completely without mercy. But this wasn't Montreal, and he wasn't Master Dubois. "I need my lab report for class," Marcus said weakly. "Then you better make 2 copies, Tyler replied. "One for you, one for me. Due tomorrow morning, or we'll start taking more than just homework." They walked away, leaving Marcus surrounded by students who quickly dispersed once the show ended. He stood there feeling smaller than ever, the weight of his secret knowledge making him feel like a fraud. What was the point of being able to fight if he was too afraid to use those skills when needed? The pattern continued for 2 weeks. Tyler's demands escalated from homework to lab reports to entire projects. Marcus found himself doing double work every night, creating assignments for himself and modified versions for his tormentor. His grades began slipping as exhaustion took its toll. Dark circles appeared under his eyes, and his mother noticed his increasing silence. "Is everything okay at school, mon petit?" she asked one evening. "Fine, maman." just adjusting to the different curriculum. She studied his face with sharp attention. "You would tell me if someone was bothering you?" Marcus forced a smile. "Of course, everything's fine." But everything was far from fine. Tyler had begun demanding cash along with homework, claiming Marcus needed to contribute to school spirit by funding football team weekend parties. Derek started shouldering into him in hallways, sending Marcus stumbling into walls while pretending it was accidental. Brandon took every opportunity to mock his accent in front of girls. The breaking point came on a Friday afternoon in late October. Marcus had stayed after school to retake a chemistry test he'd failed, a direct result of exhaustion from doing Tyler's homework along with his own. Walking across the nearly empty parking lot, he heard familiar voices from behind the gym. "I can't believe you actually thought that would work," Tyler was saying. "Did you see his face when I told him his accent made him sound like a cartoon character?" Marcus should have kept walking. Instead, something made him move closer to the brick wall and listen. "The best part is how he just takes it," Derek laughed. "My little sister has more backbone than this kid." "I almost feel bad for him," Brandon added, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Don't go soft on me now." Tyler's voice carried clear authority. "This is just business. His homework is keeping my GPA up, and his lunch money is funding our weekend. It's a perfect system." "What if he grows a spine and tells someone?" Derek asked. "Who's he going to tell? His mommy? The teachers who already think he's a joke? Face it, we own him now. And the beautiful thing is, he's doing it to himself. Every time he hands over his work, every time he pays up without fighting back, he's proving he deserves this treatment." Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. He pressed closer to the wall, needing to hear more. "You think he'll keep paying?" Brandon sounded worried. Tyler's laugh was cruel and confident. "Then we get creative. Maybe we start messing with his locker. Maybe we follow him home and introduce ourselves to mommy. Maybe we spread some rumors about why a 17-year-old kid moves to a new country alone with just his mother." The implication hit Marcus like a physical blow. They weren't just targeting him. They were threatening his mother, the one person who'd sacrificed everything to give him opportunities in America. "Besides," Tyler continued, "I've been thinking we need to expand our operation. There are other kids in this school who could use some guidance. That weird Asian kid in AP English, the fat girl who eats lunch alone, maybe some exchange students. Marcus here is just our practice run." Other kids. The words echoed in Marcus's mind as he slowly backed away. Tyler wasn't just bullying him. He was planning to systematically terrorize anyone he perceived as weak or different, and Marcus's submission was encouraging him, proving the system worked. That night, Marcus lay in his narrow bed staring at the ceiling while rain drummed against his window. His body ached with unexpressed tension, 9 years of training crying out for release. In Montreal, he'd been preparing for his first professional fight. Master Dubois had called him a prodigy, a natural talent who combined technical precision with devastating power. The difference between a martial artist and a bully. Master Dubois had told him countless times, is that a martial artist protects the innocent. He does not seek conflict, but when conflict finds him, he ends it quickly and decisively. To walk away from a fight you can win is wisdom. To allow evil to flourish because you are afraid is cowardice. Marcus rolled over and looked at the small framed photo on his nightstand, himself and Master Dubois after his black belt ceremony, both grinning widely. He'd been so proud that day, so certain of his place in the world. What would Master Dubois think of me now? The question burned in his chest. What would he say about a student who lets bullies run free because he's afraid of consequences? But it wasn't just about him anymore. Tyler had made it clear that other students would suffer if Marcus continued to show weakness. Every day, he submitted to their demands. He was enabling their expansion into new targets. The next Monday brought an opportunity for redemption that Marcus almost missed. He was walking to lunch when he heard familiar voices from the hallway near science labs. Moving quietly, he rounded the corner to see Tyler, Derek, and Brandon surrounding a small freshman girl named Emma Rodriguez. She was barely 5 feet tall, with oversized glasses and a stutter that made her an easy target. "We're just asking for a small donation to school spirit," Tyler was saying in the same tone he'd used on Marcus. "Nothing major. Just whatever you've got in your lunch money." Emma clutched her small purse against her chest. I don't have any extra money. My parents only give me enough for lunch." "That's okay." Derek stepped closer, looming over her. "We'll take your lunch money. Dieting is good for you anyway." Please don't." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "I need to eat." Brandon laughed. "Beggars can't be choosers, sweetheart. This is how things work around here." Marcus watched from the corner, his entire body coiled with tension. This was exactly what Tyler had promised: expansion into new victims. Emma was completely defenseless, a small freshman with no friends or allies to protect her. "This is your fault." The voice in his head was sharp and clear. "You showed them the system works. You taught them that fear is enough to control people." Tyler reached for Emma's purse, and something inside Marcus snapped. "Leave her alone." The words came out stronger than Marcus had intended, carrying an authority that made all 4 teenagers freeze. He stepped around the corner, and Tyler turned with a familiar smirk. "Well, look who finally found his voice. Don't worry, Frenchie, you're still our #1 customer. We're just expanding the business." "I said leave her alone," Marcus repeated, moving closer. Derek laughed. "Or what? You'll surrender at us in French?" "Go home, Emma," Marcus said quietly, never taking his eyes off Tyler. "You don't need to see this." Emma looked between them uncertainly, clutching her purse. "Are you sure? Go." She hurried away, footsteps echoing down the empty hallway. Tyler watched her leave with obvious disappointment. "That was very noble of you," Tyler said, turning back to Marcus. "Very stupid but noble. You just cost us a new revenue stream." "Good," Marcus replied simply. Tyler's expression darkened. "You know what? I'm getting tired of your attitude lately. I think it's time you learned what happens when you don't show proper respect." He moved closer, using his height advantage to tower over Marcus. "See, the thing is, we've been way too nice to you. Taking your homework, borrowing your lunch money, that was us being generous. But you seem to think you can set limits on our friendship." Derek cracked his knuckles loudly. "Maybe it's time to teach him some manners." Brandon moved to flank Marcus on the left. "Yeah, show him what happens when you disrespect your betters." Marcus felt the familiar pre-fight calm settle over him. His breathing deepened, his vision sharpened, and time seemed to slow down. Every detail became crystal clear. Tyler's overconfident posture, Derek's favoring of his left side, Brandon's nervous fidgeting. "I'll give you one chance to walk away," Marcus said quietly. Tyler laughed. "You'll give us a chance? That's rich. You know what, Frenchie? I think it's time you learned—" He never finished the sentence. Marcus moved with lightning speed, his right hand shooting out in a perfect palm strike that caught Tyler center mass and sent him stumbling backward into the lockers. Before Derek could react, Marcus pivoted and delivered a devastating roundhouse kick to his midsection that doubled him over, gasping. Brandon threw a wild haymaker that Marcus ducked easily, responding with an uppercut that snapped the taller boy's head back and sent him crashing to the floor. The entire encounter lasted less than 10 seconds. Tyler struggled to stand, his face pale with shock. "What the hell?" "Stay down," Marcus said, his voice carrying quiet authority that made Tyler freeze halfway up. "All of you." Derek was still curled on the floor, struggling to breathe. Brandon was unconscious, blood trickling from his nose. Tyler remained pressed against the lockers, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated. I tried to do this the easy way, Marcus continued, his accent suddenly seeming less like a weakness and more like exotic confidence. I let you take my homework. I gave you my lunch money. I hoped you would get bored and find other entertainment. He stepped closer to Tyler, who flinched backward. But you made two mistakes. First, you threatened my mother. Second, you decided to expand your operation to other victims. I don't understand, Tyler stammered. Where did you learn to? 9 years of kickboxing, Marcus replied simply. Black belt since I was 15. I was training for professional competition before we moved here. Tyler's mouth opened and closed without sound. Derek had managed to sit up, but remained curled against the wall, clutching his stomach. Brandon was starting to stir, groaning softly. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus continued, his voice never rising above conversational level. You're going to return every piece of homework you've stolen from me. You're going to pay back every dollar you've extorted, and you're going to leave me alone from now on. You can't just... Tyler started. I'm not finished. The words cut through Tyler's protest like a blade. More importantly, you're going to leave every other student in this school alone. Emma Rodriguez, the Asian kid in AP English, the girl who eats lunch alone. All of them. If I hear about you bothering anyone else, we'll have another conversation. Tyler's face flushed red. You think you can threaten me? My father owns half this town. I can make your life hell. Marcus smiled, and for the first time since arriving at Roosevelt High, it was completely genuine. Your father owns half this town. My mother is an immigration lawyer who specializes in discrimination cases. Want to compare legal resources? The lie came smoothly, born from desperation and delivered with complete confidence. Tyler's expression shifted from anger to uncertainty. But that's not really the point, Marcus continued. The point is that you've been operating under the assumption that I'm weak because I chose not to fight back. That was a mistake. I'm not weak. I was being merciful. Derek finally found his voice. This isn't over. Marcus turned to look at him, and Derek immediately shrank back against the wall. Yes, it is. Because if it's not over, if you decide to retaliate or continue targeting other students, then I stop being merciful. And trust me, you don't want to see what I'm like when I'm not being merciful. Brandon had managed to sit up, touching his nose gingerly. You sucker punched us. I defended myself against 3 attackers who were threatening me, Marcus corrected, and I showed considerable restraint. All 3 of you are still conscious and mobile. That was a choice, not an accident. He looked around at the 3 bullies, noting their shocked expressions and defensive postures. Let me be very clear about something. I spent 9 years learning to fight not because I wanted to hurt people, but because I wanted to protect myself and others. You've been confusing kindness with weakness, mercy with cowardice. Tyler struggled to his feet, using the lockers for support. People are going to hear about this. Everyone's going to know you attacked us. Good, Marcus replied. Let them know. Let them know that Marcus Delacroix fought back when cornered. Let them know that he protected a freshman girl from bullies. Let them know that the quiet kid from Montreal isn't as helpless as he appears. He stepped back, giving them room to leave. But also, let them know that I only fight when I have to. I don't go looking for trouble, and I don't attack people who leave me alone. Derek and Brandon helped each other stand, both moving gingerly. Tyler straightened his jacket with as much dignity as he could muster. This isn't over, Tyler repeated, but his voice lacked conviction. Yes, it is, Marcus said simply. Unless you make it not over. Your choice. They walked away, Derek and Brandon supporting each other while Tyler trailed behind, his earlier swagger completely gone. Marcus remained in the empty hallway, adrenaline slowly fading from his system. Master Dubois would be proud, he thought. Not of the fighting, but of the protection, of standing up for someone who couldn't protect herself. The next day brought a transformation that Marcus hadn't expected. Word had spread quickly through Roosevelt High's gossip network. Though the story had evolved in the telling, some versions had Marcus single-handedly defeating 5 football players. Others claimed he was a former child soldier from war-torn Quebec. A few creative souls insisted he was actually an undercover CIA agent posing as a high school student. The truth was simpler, but no less effective. Tyler, Derek, and Brandon had clearly spread the word that the quiet foreign kid was not to be messed with. More importantly, they were noticeably absent from their usual bullying activities. Marcus found Emma Rodriguez waiting by his locker before first period. "I wanted to thank you," she said quietly, her stutter completely gone. "For yesterday, Tyler and his friends have been taking my lunch money for 2 weeks. "You don't need to thank me," Marcus replied, gathering his books. "Just, if they bother you again, tell someone. Don't suffer in silence." Emma nodded earnestly. "I will. And if you ever need someone to back up your story, I was there. I saw everything." Other students approached throughout the day with similar gratitude. Michael Thompson from Student Council pulled him aside between classes to shake his hand. Sarah Williams from Chemistry Lab invited him to sit with her group at lunch. Even some football players who had previously ignored him nodded respectfully in the hallways. But the most significant change came from Tyler himself. Marcus was leaving the library after school when Tyler appeared at his side, walking quickly to match his pace. "I need to talk to you," Tyler said without preamble. Marcus slowed but didn't stop. "I'm listening." "Look, what happened yesterday? That wasn't supposed to go down like that. We were just messing around." "Messing around," Marcus repeated flatly. Tyler's face flushed. "Okay, fine. We were being assholes, but you have to understand, this is how things work around here. There's a hierarchy, and everyone knows their place." They reached Marcus's car, and he turned to face Tyler directly. "And where exactly was my place in this hierarchy?" "At the bottom," Tyler admitted, then immediately looked embarrassed by his honesty. "Look, I know how that sounds, but—" "No," Marcus interrupted. "I don't think you do know how that sounds. You think it sounds like an explanation, like a justification for stealing my work and taking my money and threatening my family." Tyler's jaw tightened. "Your family was never actually threatened. You said you might follow me home and introduce yourself to my mother. How exactly should I have interpreted that?" For a moment, Tyler looked genuinely ashamed. I was just trying to scare you." "Mission accomplished," Marcus said dryly. "You scared a 17-year-old kid who just wanted to finish high school quietly and get into college." They stood in silence for several seconds, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the parking lot. Tyler shifted uncomfortably, clearly struggling with something. "My father is going to hear about this," he finally said. "About you fighting back. He's not going to be happy." "Is that a threat?" "No," Tyler said quickly. "It's a warning. My dad, he doesn't like it when people don't show proper respect to our family. He might try to cause problems for you and your mother." Marcus studied Tyler's face, noting the genuine concern there. "Why are you telling me this?" Tyler was quiet for a long moment. "Because what Derek said yesterday about your mother being an immigration lawyer, that was a lie, wasn't it?" Marcus nodded slowly. "I figured. My dad knows every lawyer in this town." Tyler ran a hand through his hair. "Look, you humiliated me in front of my friends. By all rights, I should be planning revenge right now. But the truth is, I deserved it. We all did." The admission hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they wanted to cross. "Your homework," Tyler continued, reaching into his backpack. "All of it. And the money." He pulled out a thick envelope. "It's all there, plus interest." Marcus accepted the envelope and homework without comment. "And Emma Rodriguez, and anyone else we were bothering, that stops now. You made your point." "What about your father?" Marcus asked. Tyler sighed heavily. I'll handle my father. Tell him it was a misunderstanding that got blown out of proportion. He's more bark than bite anyway, mostly just likes people to think he's connected. They stood facing each other, former adversaries trying to navigate unfamiliar territory. For what it's worth, Tyler said quietly, I'm sorry. Not just for yesterday, but for all of it. You didn't deserve what we put you through. Marcus nodded slowly. Apology accepted. Tyler started to walk away, then turned back. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you fight back sooner? I mean, obviously you could have ended this any time you wanted. Marcus considered the question carefully. Because fighting should be a last resort, not a first response. Because violence usually creates more problems than it solves. And because I hoped you would get bored and move on to other entertainment. But you didn't get bored. No, Tyler admitted. We got greedy, started seeing you as a resource instead of a person. And that's when I had to stop you, Marcus finished, when you started planning to expand to other victims. Tyler nodded thoughtfully. You know, my whole life, people have told me I could do whatever I wanted because of who my father is. No one ever told me that just because I could do something didn't mean I should. Well, Marcus said, unlocking his car door, now you know. Tyler smiled, the first genuine expression Marcus had seen from him. Yeah, now I know. As Marcus drove home that afternoon, he reflected on the strange turn his life had taken. 3 months ago, he'd been a promising young fighter in Montreal, surrounded by friends and training for competitions. Now he was a high school student in suburban America, having just used his skills to protect a freshman girl and restore his own dignity. Master Dubois was right, he thought. The strength to fight is meaningless without the wisdom to know when fighting is necessary. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thank you for standing up for Emma and for showing us that someone cared enough to fight back. You've got friends here now if you want them. Sarah Williams. Marcus smiled and pulled into his driveway. His mother's car was already there, which meant she'd gotten home early for once. Comment ça va, mon petit? She asked as he walked through the door, using their familiar greeting. Ça va bien, maman, he replied, and for the first time since moving to America, he meant it. Everything's going well. She studied his face with the sharp attention that came from years of reading his moods. You look different, more confident. Marcus thought about the events of the past 2 days, the confrontation, the apologies, the newfound respect from his classmates. I think I'm finally finding my place here. Good, she said, pulling him into a hug. I was beginning to worry that my strong, brave son had disappeared somewhere in the move. He was always here, Marcus replied, returning the embrace. He just needed a reason to show himself. That night, Marcus called Master Dubois in Montreal, something he'd been putting off for weeks. Marcus! His old teacher's voice was warm with delight. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten your old sensei. Never, Master. I've just been adjusting. Ah, adjusting. That's a polite way of saying struggling. Marcus laughed. You always could read me too well. It's my job. So tell me, how are you applying your training in your new environment? Marcus told him everything, the bullying, his months of submission, the confrontation, and the unexpected resolution. Master Dubois listened without interruption, occasionally making small sounds of understanding. You did well, Master Dubois said when Marcus finished. Not in the fighting, any fool can throw punches. You did well in the choosing when to fight. I let it go on for months, Marcus protested. I should have acted sooner. Should you? Let me ask you this. If you had fought back the first time they approached you, what would have happened? Marcus considered. They probably would have escalated, brought more people, made it about pride instead of profit. Exactly. By waiting, By showing them that you were not naturally aggressive, you forced them to reveal their true nature. When you finally acted, everyone could see that you were defending yourself and others, not starting trouble. Master Dubois paused, and Marcus could picture him stroking his grey beard thoughtfully. A true martial artist doesn't seek to prove his strength. He seeks to protect the innocent. You protected a young girl and showed mercy to your former tormentors. That is the highest application of our art. I was scared, Marcus admitted. For months, I was just scared. Good. Fear keeps you humble. Fear makes you think before you act. The day you stop being afraid of violence is the day you become a bully yourself. They talked for another hour about techniques, about philosophy, about the upcoming competitions Marcus would miss. When Marcus finally hung up, he felt lighter than he had in months. Over the following weeks, Roosevelt High settled into a new normal. Tyler, Derek, and Brandon maintained a respectful distance from Marcus, though Tyler occasionally nodded to him in the hallways. Emma Rodriguez grew more confident, eventually joining the debate team, where her sharp mind found an outlet. The other potential victims that Tyler had mentioned were left alone, free to navigate high school's social complexities without the added burden of systematic harassment. Marcus found himself with a small but genuine group of friends. Sarah Williams introduced him to her chemistry study group, Michael Thompson invited him to student council meetings, and Emma brought him into the debate team's social circle. For the first time since moving to America, he felt like he belonged somewhere. The true test came 6 weeks after the confrontation, when Marcus was walking through the parking lot after a student council meeting and heard familiar voices coming from behind the gymnasium. This time, it wasn't Tyler and his crew. This time, it was 3 seniors from the wrestling team surrounding a sophomore named David Kim, demanding his calculator before a big math test. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, approaching the group with the quiet confidence that had become his trademark. The wrestlers turned, and Marcus recognized them as acquaintances of Derek's. One of them, a thick-necked boy named Connor Walsh, Brandon's older brother, sneered at him. "Walk away, Karate Kid. This doesn't concern you." "Actually," Marcus replied calmly, "bullying concerns everyone in this school." Connor stepped closer, using his bulk to try to intimidate. "You think, because you got lucky with Tyler and his boys, you can take on real wrestlers?" Marcus smiled, and David Kim took the opportunity to slip away toward the main building. "I think I've learned a lot about myself since moving here. Want to help me learn more?" The challenge hung in the air for several tense seconds. Marcus could see Connor calculating odds, remembering stories about the quiet foreign kid who had supposedly destroyed 3 attackers in under 10 seconds. Finally, Connor stepped back. "This isn't worth it." "Smart choice," Marcus agreed. "Bullying never is." As the wrestlers walked away, Marcus felt a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with physical victory. He'd protected another student without throwing a single punch, using only his reputation and quiet confidence to diffuse the situation. This is what Master Dubois meant, he realized. True strength is when you don't have to prove it. 3 months later, Marcus stood on the small stage in Roosevelt High's auditorium, accepting the award for student who made the biggest positive impact at the annual honors ceremony. In the audience, his mother beamed with pride, while Tyler Hutchinson, who had nominated him for the award, applauded enthusiastically. In his acceptance speech, Marcus talked about the importance of standing up for others, of finding the courage to do what's right even when it's difficult, and of the difference between strength and violence. "A wise teacher once told me," he concluded, "that the purpose of learning to fight is to never have to fight. The real victory isn't in defeating your enemies, it's in turning them into allies." As he left the stage, Marcus caught sight of Emma Rodriguez in the audience. no longer the frightened freshman he'd protected months earlier, but a confident young woman who had found her voice on the debate team. Next to her sat David Kim, the sophomore he'd helped just weeks before, now president of the math club. Tyler approached him after the ceremony, extending his hand with a genuine smile. "Congratulations," Tyler said. "You deserved that award more than anyone." "Thank you," Marcus replied, shaking the offered hand. "And thank you for nominating me. Least I could do. You changed this place, you know. Made it better for everyone." Marcus looked around at the celebrating students, former victims who now walked with confidence, former bullies who had learned to channel their influence positively, bystanders who had learned to speak up when they saw injustice. "We changed it," he corrected. "All of us, together." As he walked to his car with his mother that night, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. 9 months ago, he'd been a frightened teenager trying to hide his abilities and avoid confrontation. Tonight, he was a young man who had learned to use his strength wisely and his voice courageously. "I'm proud of you, mon petit," his mother said as they drove home. "Not just for the award, but for the young man you've become." Marcus smiled, watching the familiar streets pass by outside the window. Master Dubois always said that a martial artist's greatest victory is protecting others. I think I finally understand what he meant. The next fall, Marcus would start his freshman year at McGill University in Montreal, returning to his homeland with a deeper understanding of himself and his place in the world. But tonight, he was content to be a high school student who had learned that true strength comes not from the ability to fight, but from the wisdom to know when fighting is necessary and the courage to act when others cannot. Sometimes, he thought as they pulled into their driveway, the best way to avoid becoming what you hate is to remember why you chose to be different in the first place. And in the end, that made all the difference.